Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, a young couple's marriage is strained when the wife, struggling with depression and multiple miscarriages, opts for a hysterectomy. The husband suggests adoption, but she becomes entangled with a wealthy married man at work. Suspicious, he hires a private investigator, uncovering evidence of her cheating and extravagant lifestyle. Devastated, he publicly exposes her actions, leading to the collapse of their marriage. The wife experiences remorse, while the wealthy man faces the consequences of his divorce. The husband, heartbroken but resolute, emphasizes the importance of fidelity and commitment in relationships. Now let's get into the story. My wife, 27, started struggling with depression 4 years into our marriage. We were so young, practically newlyweds, and trying to conceive. Problem was, she kept having miscarriages. All she wanted was to be a mom, so it was extremely disappointing to her. After too many failed attempts, she gave up. She got approval from her insurance for a hysterectomy. I told her we can always work towards the goal of adoption. Our wealth wasn't quite built, but that happens after years of hard work. I told her we'd get a bigger place and save up money for our future child. She seemed okay with this idea, but it didn't solve the problem. There wasn't an immediate fix for this kind of thing. Only patience and willingness to go with the flow would get us by. Well, my wife was working in the offices of a big-name bank, and after years of service, she met AP, a super wealthy man who was in charge of half the company or something. He was married, too, for 20 years, but that doesn't matter when you're rich. So when he met my wife, I imagine he was struck by her young beauty and she was struck by his enormous wealth. My wife started to go missing. Literally. She'd stay out all night telling me she was out celebrating with coworkers, making friends, or #living. I asked if I could join her, but she said it was for employees only. I didn't get it, but now I know it didn't sit right with me because she was lying. I didn't want to believe my wife would lie, even though sometimes she'd go 48 hours without returning home. She told me she made a close woman friend that let her shower at her house and party all night. It sounded like a great time, and I was glad my wife wasn't depressed anymore. I was glad when she was home sleeping next to me, but when it became less and less frequent, I knew I had to do something sneaky. I hired a PI to watch and follow my wife. I couldn't, since we only had one car, and I couldn't stop working with my uncle at his construction project. Before I knew it, a week went by, and the PI, with his findings. My wife left work with her super-rich AP. They got in his Porsche and drove to a glamorous hotel where the PI was able to snap a picture of them entering a hotel room with AP's hand on the small of my wife's back. There are pictures of them leaving the hotel and traveling to work together the next morning. Another night, they leave work for a club and dance together, if you can call that dancing. They went to 3 different high-end hotels and party spots that week, probably spending about half the money it would take to adopt a child. I hated her instantly. I hated my wife. She didn't even look the same in the pictures. I wondered if he was giving her money on top of the sickening luxury. I wondered if she knew how much money he spent and if that made her believe she could adopt a child with him. The more I thought about it, the more it didn't make sense. So that's when I decided she must have been thoughtless. My wife wasn't thinking she was having expensive fun with AP, but as she thought this was okay or leading her any closer to adopting a child, she was out of her mind. She wasn't the person I married anymore. I cried for a while. For the first time in years, everything I thought we would accomplish together through time and hard work was gone. She didn't want me to be her life partner. Contrary to the vow she took letting my anger fuel me, I posted the pictures online. I even gave the pictures to a news channel that used it for one of their scandalous pieces. It seemed like everyone in the state freaked out about this. But no one freaked out so much as my wife and AP. They both deserved the panic and shock they felt. My wife's family stopped responding to her or communicating at all, so she started texting me and leaving voicemails daily. She was always upset. Sometimes it was anger towards me, and other times it was overwhelming guilt for her behavior. She admitted she was disgusting and pathetic for cheating on me and letting AP spend so much time. Sometimes she thought he might fund the cost of her adopting a child if he grew to love her deeply. Other times, she just chalked up her actions to be something she deserved to forget about the helplessness she felt. AP hadn't spoken to her since his wife filed for divorce. He had children with her, so he tried to save his marriage. It didn't work. He was forced to hand over half his fortune and future fortune to his children. I felt like he should give me a certain amount of money, too, so I filed to sue him in court. I can't talk about that. But regardless, from the moment I saw the pictures of my wife with him, my heart started cutting ties. I didn't want her explanation, and I didn't even want to see her again. But when I had to, it only made me more certain I did the right thing. I hope everyone reading this knows there's no excuse for cheating on your spouse or significant other. A divorce would have been a welcome alternative since my wife didn't have the patience to work with me towards our goals. Today's second story. In this story, Obi discovered his wife's cheating through a friend's video. He confronted her at the coffee shop where she worked. He publicly humiliated her by throwing a drink and later shared the video on social media. This led to her losing her job, facing legal consequences, and eventually getting evicted. Despite her apologies, he pursued a divorce, emphasizing the importance of trust in a marriage and expressing disappointment and a sense of pride for following through. Now let's get into the story. My wife had a full-time job working as a barista. She was as passionate about it as any chef or barista would be. She quickly became branch manager and was responsible for hiring and firing staff. She would come home and talk about her coworkers per the mandate of any white life. I think she probably didn't think I'd noticed that she started talking about one person way more often than the others. She added other names to her stories, but I started to have a hunch that she liked this one employee more than the others. I was minding my own business at work one day when my friend texted me with an urgent message. It was a video he filmed himself 1 minute ago of two people caught having intimate in the back of a coffee shop. At first, I didn't know he just filmed it himself. I thought it was forwarded. I knew he worked at the same coffee shop as my wife, though before I watched it, I was going to send it to my wife as a joke warning for her to not do anything so stupid. I watched it first though, and I could not believe my eyes. It was my wife in the video. You could clearly see her face and her dark curly hair. She only took 2 seconds to pull up her pants, but she was 4 seconds too late. They just lost their jobs, and she certainly just lost her husband. My friend messaged me again, saying he didn't share it online or anything because he felt like it was my right. He said my wife was still working, pretending everything was going to be fine and the video wouldn't be brought to light. I thanked him profusely, even though I was in tears. I drove to the coffee shop, forcing myself to look calm and normal. My wife greeted me kindly, although she definitely seemed nervous. She took my order and made my drink. When she handed it to me smiling, I took off the lid and threw it on her. I said that's for cheating on me and walked out. Then I told my friend to post the video on social media. I shared it on my platforms and tagged anyone my wife knew. She was completely ashamed and fired. Then she faced charges for indecency and at least one other thing. I think she had to go to court, where she was ordered to do community service and pay a fine. After that, she had to go to court for our divorce, where her infidelity was brought up again. She was tired of it and became irritated that she was facing so many consequences for sleeping with a man at work. After she moved in with AP, they split the pricey rent for 1 month. Then he told her he couldn't afford it and left to live with his mom. My wife didn't have the help she needed to get all her belongings out of the place before she was evicted and locked out. She trusted the wrong guy and made the wrong choice. I was so disappointed but proud of myself for following through with the divorce. She tried apologizing, but I told her I could only be married to someone I trusted. I heard her cry really hard only once, and I'm glad I didn't hear it anymore because I might have tried to forgive her.